Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt the emotional weight of every single person there? Before anyone even speaks, you already know who is angry, who is holding back tears, and who is merely faking a polite smile. You notice the tiny fraction of a second delay before your partner replies to a normal question. You hear the microscopic shift in your coworker vocal tone during a mundane morning meeting. You pick up on the heavy unspoken tension between two people across the table who both claim everything is completely fine. You are basically reading minds without even trying, absorbing raw data from your environment like a sponge. But here is the brutal, unspoken reality of living with that level of perception. Right now, at this very moment, you are probably exhausted. You are completely drained, running on empty, and feeling deeply isolated even when you are surrounded by the people you love. You lay awake at 2 in the morning, playing back a 10-second casual interaction on an endless looping video in your mind. You agonize over a minor facial expression, a slightly shorter text message, or a passing comment, completely torturing yourself by wondering if you did something to upset them. You ask yourself over and over again why you cannot just be normal. Why can you not just let things go and be blissfully unbothered like everyone else seems to be? Why does every tiny detail have to be so deep, so complicated, and so deafeningly loud inside your head? In the next few minutes, you are going to see the exact mechanism that is currently draining your life force. I am going to reveal what is actually happening inside your neural pathways when you ruthlessly overanalyze a simple, harmless interaction. We are going to look directly at a biological phenomenon that clinical psychology refers to as hypervigilance. But more importantly, I am going to show you the hidden truth about your chronic emotional burnout that will completely change how you view your own mind. What you currently believe is a fundamental flaw in your character or a permanent, broken part of your personality is actually something entirely different. You are going to discover the 3 distinct levels of hyperawareness that dictate your daily life. You will see exactly how your brain acts like a high-powered computer running 100 heavy applications in the background simultaneously. The camera and microphone are constantly recording 24 hours a day, constantly scanning for danger, while the battery is completely denied the chance to recharge. I will show you exactly how your amygdala, the primitive alarm center of your brain, has effectively broken its own protective filter. It can no longer tell the difference between a friend who is simply busy with work and a friend who is secretly angry with you. By the end of our time together today, you will possess a complete scientific understanding of why your mind operates this way. I will give you the exact cognitive framework to stop being a helpless victim of your own relentless radar. You will learn how to build the necessary mental boundaries to protect your energy, allowing you to finally take control. You are going to learn how to turn this exhausting, overwhelming daily burden into your absolute greatest psychological advantage. We have a massive amount of ground to cover regarding your internal wiring. Let us get to work. Let us begin by looking at a standard Tuesday morning. For an average person, waking up and going to the kitchen to make coffee is just a sequence of physical actions. But for you, the person operating with a hyper-aware nervous system, the day does not start with coffee. It starts with a comprehensive environmental scan. You walk into the kitchen and instantly assess the acoustic profile of the room. Is your partner putting the coffee mug down slightly harder than usual? Is the silence peaceful, or is it a heavy, loaded silence that suggests a hidden frustration? You have not even had a sip of water yet, and your brain has already processed 50 different subconscious data points to determine the emotional weather of your house. You do this completely automatically. You are the tireless radar, constantly sweeping the horizon for any sign of a storm. I used to live exactly like this, believing that my ability to read the room was a superpower that made me a better friend, a better partner, and a better person. I thought that noticing every tiny detail was just what being empathetic meant. If someone at work was unusually quiet, I would instantly run a diagnostic on all my recent interactions with them. Did I say something insensitive yesterday? Did I forget an important email? I would spend hours carefully constructing the perfect text message, analyzing the tone of every single word, just to ensure it could not possibly be misinterpreted. But here is the devastating truth I had to learn the hard way. This is not pure empathy. This is a trauma response disguised as emotional intelligence. But that is not even the most exhausting part of the equation. What happens when you leave your house and step into a social environment is where the real energy drain occurs. Imagine your brain is a highly advanced smartphone. A normal person walks into a crowded room, opens the one application they need to use, perhaps the socializing app, and leaves the phone in their pocket. Your brain, however, is opening 100 heavy applications simultaneously. You are running the facial expression analysis app, the tone of voice decoding app, the posture evaluation app, and the historical context app for every single person you interact with. The camera is recording, the microphone is on, and the location services are tracking every movement. And just like a phone running that many programs, your internal battery is draining at an astronomical rate. You are constantly overheating. Let us look closer at how this hyper-awareness infiltrates your professional and personal life. I remember sitting in a meeting room once, completely frozen, because the person presenting the project sighed before answering my question. It was a microscopic intake of breath, lasting less than a second. A normal person would not have even registered it, but my brain took that sigh, magnified it 1,000 times, and projected it onto a massive internal screen. My internal alarm sounded. For the next 3 hours, I could not focus on a single word of the presentation. I was entirely consumed by the narrative that this person thought I was incompetent. I rewrote the entire history of our professional relationship in my head, convinced that I had ruined everything. Your brain takes a grain of sand, puts it under an emotional microscope, and convinces you it is a massive boulder falling toward your head. You might notice that a friend laughs at a joke, but their eyes remain completely detached. You might pick up on the fact that your boss ended a meeting 2 minutes early and avoided eye contact with you on the way out. For the rest of the day, while everyone else has completely forgotten about the meeting, you are physically sitting at your desk, but mentally you are in a courtroom. You are putting yourself on trial, cross-examining your own behavior, desperately trying to figure out what went wrong. You become a prisoner of your own perception. You are absorbing the emotional baggage of everyone around you, but you have absolute nowhere to put it. You become a landfill for unresolved emotional tension. However, the mechanism driving this behavior is not a character flaw. It is a biological process happening deep inside your neural architecture. To truly understand why you are so exhausted, we have to look at a small, almond-shaped cluster of nuclei located deep within the temporal lobe of your brain. This is the amygdala. Think of the amygdala as the ultimate internal security guard. Its entire job is to keep you alive by scanning for threats. Thousands of years ago, if you were walking through a forest and heard a twig snap, your amygdala would instantly flood your body with adrenaline and cortisol, preparing you to run from a predator. It was a perfect, life-saving system for physical survival. What happens next is truly terrifying when you apply it to modern life. When you take that ancient, primitive alarm system and place it into the complexities of daily social interaction, everything breaks down. For someone with hyperawareness, the amygdala has essentially broken its own protective filter. It has lost the ability to distinguish between a genuine physical threat and a perceived social threat. When a friend reads your message and does not reply for 3 hours, your brain should ideally register that as neutral information. They are probably just busy working, but your broken filter perceives that silence as a massive screaming threat to your social standing and safety. It rings the alarm bell with the exact same intensity as if a lion just walked into your living room. This constant state of red alert is a clinical condition known as hypervigilance. Your nervous system is perpetually locked in a fight or flight response. You are always bracing for impact, always expecting the other shoe to drop. This is exactly why you feel physically tight in your shoulders, why your stomach is often in knots, and why your sleep is incredibly shallow and easily disturbed. Your brain is utterly convinced that if it relaxes its guard for even 1 single second, something terrible will happen to you. You have subconsciously tied your physical safety to the emotional state of the people around you. If everyone else is happy and comfortable, you feel safe. If someone is upset, you feel you are in immediate danger. But wait, the situation becomes incredibly dark when we look at what happens when you are finally alone. You would naturally think that closing the door to your bedroom and being completely by yourself would bring ultimate relief. But this is where the second biological mechanism traps you. It is called the default mode network. This is a complex network of interacting brain regions that becomes highly active when you are not actively focused on the outside world. For most people, when the default mode network turns on, they might daydream about an upcoming vacation, imagine winning the lottery, or think about what to eat for dinner. For the hyper-aware individual, however, the default mode network transforms into a torturous rumination engine. The moment you lay in bed in the dark and the external distractions finally disappear, this network takes all the raw data your radar collected all day and begins to process it ruthlessly. Plays back that 10-second awkward interaction from the morning on an endless, unskippable loop. It dissects the tone of a specific brief email, forces you to relive agonizing moments from 5 years ago where you felt you overstepped or said the wrong thing. You are trapped in a high-definition echo chamber of your own insecurities. Your brain is desperately trying to solve a puzzle that does not actually exist, frantically searching for the hidden meaning behind a completely meaningless, random event. This relentless internal processing leads directly to the third phase of the hyperawareness cycle, which is complete and total emotional burnout. This is the exact state where you find yourself completely withdrawing from the world. You start canceling weekend plans at the very last minute, not because you do not deeply love your friends, but because the sheer thought of having to process another human being's emotional state makes you want to cry. You start to crave physical isolation like a starving person craves food. You sit in your room, entirely exhausted, depleted, and completely empty, wondering why simple existence feels like running a marathon in the mud. This is the precise moment when the self-blame becomes absolutely deafening. You look around at the people in your life, the people who can just exist in the world without analyzing every single shadow, and you feel incredibly broken. You tell yourself over and over again that you are too complicated, too sensitive, and too difficult to love. You genuinely believe that your brain is fundamentally flawed. Desperately wish you could just locate a physical switch inside your head and turn off the radar permanently. You wish you could be oblivious, careless, and free. You see your hyperawareness as a heavy, inescapable curse that is actively ruining your life. But the narrative you have been silently telling yourself all these years is entirely wrong. You are not broken. Your brain is not flawed in any way. In fact, brain is doing exactly what it was brilliantly programmed to do. It is functioning at an incredibly high level of efficiency and observation. The problem is not the hardware inside your skull. Problem is that no one ever handed you the instruction manual for how to operate this specific high-powered type of machinery. You have been driving a Formula One race car in first gear for your entire life, wondering why the engine is screaming, overheating, and the car is shaking violently. You have been treating a highly advanced survival mechanism as if it were a psychological disease. What you are currently experiencing is not a failure of character. It is the direct result of a brain that has evolved to protect you at all absolute costs. Somewhere in your past, usually in early childhood, paying very close attention to the emotional state of the adults around you was not just a quirky personality trait. It was a strict requirement for your emotional or physical safety. Learned very quickly that if you could predict a sudden mood swing before it happened, you could adjust your behavior and avoid the incoming chaos. If you knew exactly what those heavy footsteps in the hallway meant, you could make yourself invisible and stay safe. Your brain built this incredible radar system to keep you alive, and it did a phenomenal, perfect job. It is a brilliant adaptation born out of absolute necessity. But now, the environment has changed, you have grown up, and you are still running the old, outdated survival software. You are still treating every mundane, everyday interaction as a literal life-or-death situation. You are still trying to unilaterally control the emotional weather of the entire world because a much younger, more vulnerable version of you believed that was the only way to survive the day. The crushing exhaustion you feel right now is just the inevitable result of carrying a massive emotional responsibility that was never actually yours to carry in the first place. You have been acting as the dedicated emotional bodyguard for everyone in your life, completely neglecting the one person you were actually supposed to protect. The true heartbreaking tragedy is that while you are so fiercely attuned to the needs, feelings, and micro expressions of every single person who crosses your path, you have become completely deaf to your own internal signals. Your physical body is screaming for rest, your mind is begging for temporary peace, and you are actively ignoring all of it just to make sure someone else is not slightly inconvenienced. You have repeatedly sacrificed your own peace of mind on the altar of making other people feel comfortable, and it is slowly, methodically destroying you from the inside out. But what if I told you that this exact mechanism, very thing that is draining your life force right now, is actually the key to an extraordinary level of human connection and personal power? What if the radar is not the problem at all, but rather the fact that you simply do not know how to build a fence around it? Let us shift the perspective entirely. What if the very mechanism that makes you feel so completely exhausted is actually your greatest untapped asset? The clinical term hypervigilance carries a heavy negative connotation, but if we strip away the trauma and the anxiety for a moment, what you are fundamentally experiencing is a state of hyperempathy. You possess a neurological architecture that allows you to read human data with a level of precision that 99% of the population will never even begin to comprehend. You are basically walking around with a psychological MRI machine inside your head. Most average people are completely emotionally blind, navigating their relationships through clumsy trial and error. You, on the other hand, can clearly see the exact emotional mechanics of a room before you even sit down in your chair. This is not a curse. This is a profound, high-level evolutionary advantage, provided you learn how to properly calibrate the machine. Critical missing piece in your life right now is not a physical switch to turn off your awareness. You do not need to become a cold, distant, or oblivious person to finally find some peace. What you desperately need is an internal firewall. You need to build a firm psychological boundary that clearly separates your acute observation from your emotional absorption. Right now, your brain observes a friend hiding their sadness, and your amygdala immediately flags it as your personal responsibility to fix the situation. You absorb their emotional state and carry it as your own heavy burden. But you can actively train your prefrontal cortex to intercept that exact signal. You can observe the sadness, logically acknowledge it, and consciously decide not to carry it. You can learn to say to yourself, I clearly see that they are struggling today, but their emotional state does not threaten my physical safety, and it is not my personal job to rescue them. When you finally master this specific cognitive separation, something truly magical happens to your body. The crushing daily exhaustion finally disappears. The background anxiety melts away. This happens because you are no longer burning all your valuable energy trying to desperately control the emotional weather of the people around you. You are simply observing the weather, wearing a protective raincoat, and walking through the storm completely safely. Your hyperawareness suddenly transforms from a defensive trauma response into a conscious tool of extreme emotional intelligence. Become the rare person who knows exactly what to say to someone who is hurting, not out of a frantic fear of conflict, but out of genuine, deeply grounded compassion. You transform into an incredible leader, a deeply connected partner, and a fiercely loyal friend without constantly sacrificing your own mental health and sanity in the process. I want you to stop and really think about this truth for a second. Think about exactly how much raw brain power, precious time, and deep emotional energy you spend every single day analyzing other people, trying to predict their sudden mood swings, and trying to constantly keep the peace in your environment. Now, imagine if you took just 50% of that massive energy and firmly redirected it inward toward yourself. What exactly could you build with that power? What amazing things could you achieve? Who could you become if you finally stopped acting as the dedicated emotional bodyguard for the entire world and started aggressively protecting your own peace of mind? You now understand the complex biological mechanics of your hyperawareness. But building that internal firewall I just mentioned requires a very specific psychological technique, especially when you are actively dealing with people who constantly try to cross your boundaries and drain your energy. In my very next video, I am going to reveal the dark psychology of emotional vampires and provide the exact step-by-step cognitive strategy to make yourself completely immune to their manipulation without ever losing your empathy. It is a powerful biological shield that 99% of people do not even know exists. Make sure you subscribe right now, because you absolutely do not want to miss that specific breakdown.